I smell good to him?
Yes, he wants you to smell. Hello,
That is
Christina.
so cute.
Get on me.
What do I smell like?
I don't know, but he likes it. Is that good? He did it to my friend's laundry the other day too. And she was like, oh my God, I wonder if he actually smells like it. And then she smelled him and she was like, yep.
He likes that.
So smell this stuff. Smell him now.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, it could be just like my perfume or
Yeah.
just, it's so funny.
He wants to smell like Christina.
Thanks,
Okay.
buddy. I'm glad you approve of how I smell.
You should, he better. There's no reason to. You got your laptop?
Yeah.
Is it within your purview?
Yeah.
Is it you need power?
No, actually, I'm pretty good. Yep, I'm good.
Okay. Hello, Bruce.
You're gonna help us today, aren't you, buddy?
Bruce says, I know white supremacy better than anyone else. No, you don't, Bruce. You think you do, but you don't.
Look at him.
All right.
He's perfectly in the shot. Okay.
There it is. Yeah, it's leaning today.
Yeah. I feel like once October is over, it's like,
It's over.
how is their Christmas stuff out already?
Because it is. Because that's what people do. I'm just like over Christmas. Too.
Yeah. Let's see.
All right.
So we're here.
Yeah.
It's Christina.
Andrea here.
Yes. And this is your neighbor's kid.
Yeah.
We are talking about a big topic today.
Yeah, this one's...
White supremacy.
But you've been wanting to talk about
I have been wanting to talk about it because it's different. I mean, there's racism obviously in it, but it's different than institutional racism. You know what I mean? It's a very specific term. It has a history, and then it also has a place in society still today.
Right.
Which is very, I think for some people, it's hard to believe unless you see things like the shooting with Dylan Roof or unless you see things like Charlottesville.
I can't remember. Is racism what is it? What kind? Racism is a adjunct, a noun?
It's a noun, and racist would be like an adjective, you know, or
racist
a noun.
is a noun.
Yeah, because a person, place, or thing is a noun. An adjective describes a noun.
Yeah.
So, and it's a construct, but like white supremacy, what we learned to introduce it is it's very specific. So you need to be white, which is loosely held. You need to be male. I mean, these are the things they value.
Right.
Christian,
Right.
straight, and wealthy.
And pro-patriarch.
Yes, pro-patriarch.
So
Which is so crazy to me because I always thought of white supremacy as just like hating Jews and people of color. But if you really dig into it, the women have a very low place in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we talked to Jason previously,
Yeah.
we asked him where do women stand
Yeah.
in this movement, and he
He's
said,
our former neo-Nazi interview.
we did an interview with him.
Go back and listen.
Definitely, and it's like women are for keeping the movement going.
Yeah.
Make the babies.
I think in the research, the part that I didn't find that I'd love to know is like, where is this born? You know what I mean? Like, where does this originate? Or like, how do you wake up and just have this idea that white people are the superior race?
I mean, it's. I don't have the answer to that.
Right.
But I'd like to
just
think.
asking rhetorically.
Yeah, I'd like to think that it's ego. I believe that.
Yes.
I would like to think that there is a group of people who really felt like they should have all the power. So by definition, white supremacy is the belief that white people are superior to all other races,
Right.
especially black race, which should be therefore should therefore dominate society.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is we're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And in America, it's obviously specific. The big, if you're talking about the two big beefs, it's between blacks and whites.
Right.
But
that's how I traditionally knew it. And
but it's, white supremacy is all of that.
Right.
It's all of that, like you said, straight.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so we define what it is, and then they seek to establish white-only spaces like pools, parks, and schools, restaurants, and neighborhoods, along with controlling physical space.
Yeah.
And they envision white ownership of abstract ideas like knowledge and scholarship.
Absolutely, because it's a... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And I think for me, like, I guess answering my question, you helped me think about it, it's like, it comes back from history of this idea that the white race is the most educated, that they are superior, and that we're actually, our DNA and our makeup
biologically better.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
But it is a mindset of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Am I saying that word right?
That's a great question. Authoritarian. Oh no, I don't know. I'm gonna slaughter it with you.
I would have tried. It is. There's a sense of obedience and authority
and blind obedience.
At the expense of somebody else's freedom.
Yes.
Right. So like that. I mean.
And then we read too that it's always their right.
It's always their
right. There's no room for discussion. There's no, like, in a healthy society, ideally you want like diverse ideas, you want good leadership, you know, is where you want surrounding yourself with people that are different, that are better than you, that question what you do in a healthy way.
In a healthy way.
And then a divergence of like topics and asking questions and, you know, and questioning within reason your people in charge.
Yeah, but instead I listen, at least in listening to what it means fundamentally, and what people nowadays say. It's like, no, it's about my history, it's about this thing, it's about, no, white supremacy is about the preservation of power.
Yeah.
Over
everything and anyone.
Over everything and anyone. It's a standard that white people are the model of excellence.
Yeah.
Excellence when it comes to
and white males. Everything.
Like if we were to put a perfect picture, which is why Jesus is white, that's not a coincidence. Right. It's painted as white. But
I never even thought about that until I got to high school, and then people pointed out, like, he was from the Middle East. He would not have bright blonde hair and blue eyes.
It's not about preserving people's individual history. It's about keeping power.
Well, and then that's how you saw white supremacy keep its place, is like within lynchings. And I forget, like, there was a time period where they had lynchings going on. Okay, so 1888 and 1918, 2,500 black men and women were killed. None of the killers were arrested.
Why would they be?
I know, but that's like,
Why would they be?
I can't wrap my head around that, like, living in a time like that. And I often always wonder, like, because I always ask myself, like, what side of history would I be in? Not that I would be for lynchings, but would I have the courage to speak up? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I mean, but your life would be threatened too, so you'd have a lot to weigh.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I often wonder today, you know what I mean? Like, what are the lynchings of our day? And I've often wondered, are they the shootings? Are they, you know, and do I do enough?
The lynchings of our day are almost exactly the same as the lynchings that they were before.
Right.
I mean, when you talk about policing in neighborhoods, that's a form of lynching. When you talk about districting with schools and with deprivation of resources, that's white supremacy's own way of putting the chokehold on certain communities.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In a sense.
Yes. And speaking of this, okay, so I love to tell the stories. I remember when I bought my first house, you know, I remember there was my real estate agent she didn't know it, but she was suggesting not to go in certain neighborhoods because of the that it was dangerous. And that's called redlining. And that was like a small form of what used to happen. But I remember when we first met, you told me you couldn't have bought your house.
No, there's no way I would be. If I was around when this house was built, I would not be allowed in this neighborhood.
When was your house built?
Even escorted in 1917. Oh. So even if I was escorted, the deed says it. Yeah. I should actually post a picture of my deed.
You should. And so then too, like, the redlining laws, so interesting.
Right. And banks wouldn't give money to people.
That's what I was like.
It is so deep.
And they tried to keep them in the cities.
Right. They like you said, they boxed predominantly. We'll just say this is, right now we're talking about a black and white issue. Yeah. They boxed black folks into certain areas. Right. And then they said, oh, you've got the opportunity to come out of that area? No, we're going to make it so these banks won't even give you a loan to come up out of it. And that's why I feel like white supremacy has created and reinforced certain stereotypes. And even just talking about the housing piece, I would recommend, Netflix has an original series called Explained. And one of the episodes, one of their episodes talks about the racial wealth gap. And that was only created by white supremacy. You even have people from like Cory Booker, who went off the rails recently for me, but Cory Booker's telling his story about how it affected his family and how it influenced his family. It's just like, these are real things that have created the stereotype that black women are naturally poor and have all these babies that they can't take care of.
Well, I loved, you brought this up once, so when white people have 7 or 8 kids, it's like, oh, that's a lovely...
The Dugards!
Yeah. Their lovely Irish Catholic family, and oh, that's just, and then when a black family has 6 kids, it's assumed that they're on welfare. Well, I just was reading in my research, it was like, if a poor black woman had a child, they would assume that she shouldn't even have children. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That she shouldn't, that because she's like less fit to care for children.
Yeah, even if we talk about, I think we read the same thing where if we just talk about what white supremacy has done to women in general.
Right.
You need to watch Roe versus Wade.
Right.
We talk about forcible sterilization.
Yeah, of Native American
women. And
up until the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, again, Netflix, because I mean Netflix and chilling by myself. Reversing Roe talks about how women had to go into in front of a board of men to be able to get an abortion or to terminate a pregnancy, whether it was for their health or not.
Yeah.
However, wealthy white women were afforded the opportunity to do a therapeutic abortion because
What is that?
I might kill myself if I have this baby, or I don't want this baby, because again, white supremacy is pro-patriarchy. So it's not just about pro-wealth, pro-patriarchy. You know what I mean? Like, let's not forget that they said, it was a court case that was in one of the articles. What was it? Where the court's case was determining, it pretty much said that poor white people were imbeciles, and that it validated sterilizing poor white women. Because, let me get the court case, because it's not even funny, but it's like...
But it's so ridiculous to even think about.
So, Supreme Court case in 1927, Buck versus Bell, or Buck v. Bell, validated sterilizing young unmarried women all the way into the 70s. Of course, it was targeting certain groups of people, as you mentioned before, Native American women, because white supremacy said that
they were
Native
supposed to be
American women,
savages.
they're savages. They're terrible. And all they're going to do is raise savages. Like, these are messages that cross.
And they get passed down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they stay in place. And that's why, because I think people hear white supremacy and they think, well, that's a thing of the past. But if we don't, there's 2 things. If we don't study the past, we don't see how it affects now. And I think we don't realize how prevalent it still is.
It still is.
And how with white supremacy, you keep stereotypes in place, and stereotypes are dangerous.
Yeah,
can be dangerous.
They're super dangerous, which leads us to, like, nowadays, who or what machines are keeping white supremacy relevant, giving it space.
Well, I think too, you see, like, there's when we learned from Jason Downer, the former neo-Nazi, that they are dumbing down, but watering down the message. So the alt-right will water it down so it becomes more palatable to more people, because thankfully there are some places we have made progression. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of what was normalized back in the day is not anymore.
Bruce, it's like
every podcast we're gonna take a Bruce break.
Bruce, what do you want? He's at your computer.
Hi, buddy. Because he wants love. I'm not paying attention to him.
What do you want?
Oh, buddy. Hi, buddy. So what keeps it in place is, messaging and ideology, right? So, and we covered this too. You said you have to reach children. So in order to keep things in place, we talked about this too when we did an interview with, it's coming out with a sociologist, is when you don't live in diverse spaces, you get and this was so good. She backed up this idea, but it keeps the idea that white people are better, because, this is not going to sound bad, but it's like, even how I grew up, like, okay, We saw all white people as it. And then downtown was dangerous. We never came out and said that it was because of black people, but I mean, it was primarily black. It was probably more a breakdown of 50-50, but when you would go downtown Cleveland, you would just see black people, and it was, those neighborhoods were dangerous, and they lived in poverty.
And
and it was stereotyping an entire race. There was no right. It was
these people.
Yeah.
It's like even saying that, like I hear the blacks. I think it's so weird when people say that. Is that weird when people say the blacks? Really is it weird? But it's like the effect or the influence of white supremacy it's in everything.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's in the medicine. As we went to an event and we talked about.
Yeah, medical racism.
It's in the medicine. It's in.
That could be a whole episode.
It's in the politics.
Yeah.
It's in the real estate. It's in everything that would cause everything that you would think that you would need to succeed. White supremacy has a hand in morphing the idea behind who is good at it, who should have it, and who should not.
And also, look at it, politics. I don't even know the breakdown of the statistics, but it's so, if you just look at how many white men are still in office, and that's why me and you also believe and are so passionate about politics, is that you need people that look like you and me in politics, because then you have white men are setting our policies, and they're not reflecting the actual population.
I think, too, and this may be controversial in a sense, is that I feel like the way white supremacy takes hold of politics is because it has given poor white people the belief that at least they're not black.
Right.
And it's also given them...
That's how they separated us, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then because when I look at politics, I look at how politics and the media come together, how they intersect, how they intertwine, how they're almost like one and the same. And it is like we can't not talk white supremacy and not talk about the way our government is structured, the way news is fed to us. And these people that have been in position since the 70s, since all this stuff was, you know what I mean? Like, we can't not look at that a lot of these men that are making decisions were around in an era where we're just using as historical facts.
Yeah.
We're using the 70s as historical facts.
And if they're not doing the work to unlearn, you know what I mean? That made me even think of it. If they're not trying to unlearn things from the 70s, then those ideas are still going to be prevalent today.
I mean, like, straight up, it's like now, I mean, I don't know what's shifted, but we also have those people that can now say, hey, yeah, I'm a white nationalist. Yeah, I'm running.
Well, yeah, didn't we see that recently? Someone
we're in the great state of Virginia,
yeah.
And we have someone running in a national race that is like, has true ties to
white supremacy or racism?
To organizations that believe in white supremacy.
Yeah. And
are not afraid to say it. You know? So there's like these different brands, as you kind of talked about before, that is like, how can we be in a place where we're trying to move from the idea that white is only right?
Right.
When we have people that are playing a game, our political system, that has not the best interests of a group of white people and of women. Right.
So I found this, I was looking, the figures give you an indicator of who holds the, so just listen to the breakdown of this, who holds power. Okay, Congress is 90% white. Governors, 96% white. Top military advisors, 100% white. President and vice president.
Let's say that's in the cabinet. That's like military advisors to the president.
Yeah, good. That's in the president. Yeah, right. Current POTUS cabinet, 91% white. People who decide which TV shows we see, 93% white. People who decide which books we read, 90% white. People who decide which news is covered, 85% white. People who decide which music is produced, 95%. Teachers, 83%. College professors, 84. Owners of men's pro football teams, 97. I just thought that was such an interesting thing, because when we say that it's all around us, it is. You know what I mean? That shows, that is every level of anywhere that you are, right? So we covered politics, we covered media, we covered books, we covered even sports.
Yeah. And education.
And education.
Which is the huge piece.
So let's even go to that. I mean, it's so true. I've never had I was thinking about that because, you know, you start to, after doing this work, you start to think things through. I've never had a person of color as a teacher of mine. Not once. From grade school to, and I mean, that's just, is what it is.
Telling.
Yeah, even in my college experience, nothing. And I didn't know to seek that out at a younger age because I wasn't raised. You see, and that's why this is so important. It's so important to examine these things, and it's so important to seek out diverse experiences.
Yeah, it's there.
Because I think there's another picture that I had of like the different rankings of what keeps white supremacy in place, and at the very bottom, what's indifference.
Right, you said that several times. Yep. Is that the worst enemy?
Ellie Weisel, Ellie Weisel says that, but it's like something about that, like where it's apathy. It's just not knowing, and I think apathy also comes with ignorance, though. But at the same time, I mean, at this point in time, I charge people that like we can no longer be ignorant, and there's so many free resources that there's just not an excuse.
Ignorance is now a choice.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
At this juncture, like if you don't know, then it is because you've got to consciously choose not to know.
Yes.
So if you're only consuming, and this is both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're only consuming Fox News, Breitbart, and if you're only consuming CNN, and I can't think of another, you know, if you're only consuming these things and not looking outside of then you're getting all these things are reinforcing your own beliefs.
You know, and what I can hear too is like the average person that even listens to our podcast are saying, great, like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but how do I dismantle it? I think it doesn't come with, so look, change takes a long time, and it doesn't come with power. Like, I think people, what they think is when we dismantle big things, or when we see big shifts in society, it's taken small acts, right? So I'm just trying to say is like, don't underestimate trying to diversify your network, trying to look at your Netflix feed and seeing how many, you know, films are you taking part in that are from people of color, how many books and what are you reading, being aware of other people's plights, being aware of how, so when I did your campaign and then kind of really dove into this work, the biggest eye-opener for me was that my white privilege, I knew what white privilege was, but I wasn't seeing how somebody else lived such a different reality. That's it. You know, and so I think I would just challenge people. I guess I did my so what, now what? I'll have to come with another one. But you know, it is just being aware, and that's where you start. Because white privilege allows so many people to not even have to review this stuff, and it also allows us to think that white supremacy is something of the past.
It is not.
But we're still living in the after effects of it.
But please review the past. But please look at the past. Because it's not, white supremacy as a whole is not it leaves no one out.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say.
If you don't fit the mold, if you are not checklist, let's go through it again, right?
Yeah.
If you're not straight. If you are not middle class or wealthy, if you are not well educated,
you're not a man.
If you're not pro patriarchy, or Christian, white supremacy,
nobody
don't like you.
Nobody, literally, I mean, that's like none of the population. Which, to my question is, what the hell does white supremacy? So is that what do they want the rest of the population for us to do? To
follow their lead.
Right, because we said that too. They know what's best.
Because they know what's best.
Oh my God!
Consume my culture. Consume all these things, and it's not like it's. I was looking at like trying to, because you always said like we don't want to make it a black-white thing, but I was looking at the one of the articles was talking about how Chinese Americans.
Yes, I saw that too. Like put them in the internment camps.
Yeah.
Well, and like during World War II, we wouldn't take Jewish refugees.
Oh hell no! Like no, why?
I didn't even think of that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it was, and it's all behind the idea that white men are the best people.
I mean,
it's so crazy.
People roll their eyes, I think, especially at this point when people say dismantle the patriarchy. Like, I will admit that, but then it's like...
But, again, we're using some good sense. It is not dismantle the patriarchy because they're men.
Right. No.
Right? Like, I never... Again, I say, you listen to people, but please believe the facts. Right? Listen to people. Yes, the patriarchy does need to be more collaborative. But why?
Right.
And so history will tell you why it needs to be that way. Not just because men are dumb, men are evil.
No, and that's why I will admit, like, I've had a hard time aligning with the, not to get off topic, but like, with the feminist movement, but I'm not, because
you are a feminist, your own version of it.
Absolutely. And your neighborhood, though, is not here to tell you that white men are the devil. Because I think what happens is with the white men, where people start to see and get afraid because they see when we say dismantle, we're not saying that, I'm not on the brand of feminism that's, because it's very the same as white supremacy to say that all women have the answers. That's why in this movement, I get angry because people say, well, women are the answer. Hell no. No, I'm still flawed. I'm still not the smartest person just because I have a uterus. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So we're just saying that women need a seat at the table. Absolutely. More people of color need a seat at the table. Exactly. We're not asking white men to leave. We're just saying, hey, give us our equal share.
And I don't want a gerontocracy, right? I have a problem.
You brought that up too.
I have a whole issue with it, and I brought up Mitch McConnell, but I'm an independent, so I have the same problem with like Nancy Pelosi, like these people. You're older folks who are here doing. So I don't believe in your ability to create a problem solve because sometimes you've got to remove yourself and be wise. A man said to me recently, he was like, there's some things going on. He was like, Jackie, understand this. Age is for wisdom. The youth are for war. And so when I look at the political side of things, the news side of things, the religious side of things, because that's a whole other piece we didn't even touch. It's like we have people that are telling us who and what to do and believe that are not living the same realities that we have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you need a diverse population in Congress. And if we just look at what we read, 96% of governors, 99% of Congress.
In Congress, in
media,
2018. And in faith.
Yeah.
In faith, because we've got people
in gender and gay, straight, absolutely.
That are absolutely. And it's I can't even because I don't intend to offend anybody, but my biggest struggle with the piece of it that gets touchy, which is religion, is that I know that Christianity has been used to oppress groups.
It just said it had. Yeah, I mean, I'm not yelling at you.
No.
I'm like, Jackie, it just said, no, but I mean, it's said that unless you are Christian,
fuck you.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to also our listeners that are Christians, I'm not saying that all Christianity is like that. And I would say modern day Christianity hopefully has gotten better and of course more inclusive. But you just have to look at the history of it.
You have to listen, and you have to listen to, there are still pastors out there preaching that European culture is the only culture that is blessed.
Okay, yeah. And that goes back to, I was listening to a podcast with the Mayflower Compact, and just in the beginning of 1600, the Puritans had, there was no separation of church and state.
Right. So
Christianity was the end all be all, and so if you fell outside of that, then you're done. I mean, truly, you're listening to the Salem witch trials, which is its own thing. But it's just the idea of going back to Christianity is it and white and and being white.
Yeah.
It started there.
Yeah, and if Jesus is love, then there's no place for that.
That's such a good point.
Do you know what I mean? If Jesus is love and we're turning the other cheek.
To hear a Christian that is a white supremacist, or they say they're a Christian.
Then how do you validate the New?
That's what I'm saying.
So what does the New Testament mean to you?
That's right.
That is what I would.
Jesus dying on the cross.
for all of us sins.
Yeah.
But like I said, you do have religious leaders out there that will preach, that will it's a book and it's left up to one's own interpretation.
Yes.
And you get to choose who you follow
so
on that journey. So know that too is a choice. And I don't know very many people outside of my husband who have read the Bible from beginning to end.
I had to, but yeah.
But from beginning to end, and are able to apply it to all things.
Oh, yeah. No, I can't.
I just don't know. So like we're hoping that these people that are leading us in news, in media, in politics, and in faith are these SMEs and subject matter experts to help us apply. And when those things go unchecked, things like white supremacy.
Yes. And if you learn anything from this podcast, which we hope you do, but critically think and challenge those in authority. Right? Yeah. I mean, truly, like, you listen to us, don't take what we say for, fact all the time, but, we do our best. Saying, like, you have to always dig deeper in everything.
Yes. And the fact is we're in a time who 39% of white Americans believe that they are under attack. Yeah. And what is it? 31% of them believe that they have to protect and preserve European heritage. But on the flip side of that,
where is it going? Where's our history going? But okay.
But that was in a Rutgers poll.
Okay.
But 89% believe that all races should be treated equally. So it's really tough when we don't get close to history.
How does this make you feel as a person of color when you read these statistics, when you see this stuff? Because I'm coming in from it, my perspective, but what would,
as a black girl, living in an interesting world. No, I get upset a little bit, but then it's not so much as, to me, it reinforces the urgency to do my job with my citizens.
Yeah.
Your
kid citizens?
Yes, my kid citizens. Yeah. Because I feel like, and be the best example that I can be. Because I know that in my tiny little circle, my little village, is that we each are thought leaders on different things. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to this sort of stuff, they're looking at me like, Jackie, what say you? And when it comes to like hair stuff, I'm looking at another girl like, hey, what say you? Do you know what I mean? But I know the level of responsibility that I have within my little village. And when I read this stuff, it's like, shit, I can't afford to not be on my game. Because any misstep, any misword, I could become a person that reinforces something that I don't mean to reinforce.
I would steal that too. As a white person, I'm starting to see now that I know everything that I know, I can't not use my voice and our podcast and quite literally your neighbor's hood, my neighborhood, to have these conversations, to challenge people. And I will say, it is hard. I know I've been around completely racist comments, and even since I've done this work and not said anything, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard. And it's like, and I'm not saying that I'm correct, I'm just saying that this is not an easy topic. It's not, because I also find that I feel like I'm not qualified to say anything. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
I'm like,
you need to be a professor, do you feel like you need to be an educator?
Yes!
No.
I go through that all the time.
That is the problem.
I'm not armed. I've said I want to have my little note cards, you know what I mean? Because we live in such an era where we throw around statistics, and it's such... So I think we stay silent as white people because we don't even know what to say.
That can no longer be a reason.
No, absolutely. Because, and that's why I'm saying I'm holding myself accountable to it. But it's just not easy, and that's why I'm telling other white people too. It's really, when we hear racist things, like, don't underestimate how harmful it is. Yeah.
So I would ask this. Of you as a European American, how would you urge other people to spend their privilege?
Yeah, well, one, being aware that you have it. Unfortunately, we're still at a place where that's even a touchy subject of understanding what white fragility and white privilege is, and understand that if you get angry at the word white privilege, that's white fragility, which could even trigger more anger. And the anger's okay. I've said that before. It's just what you do with that anger, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, literally, that's why it's our tagline. We have uncomfortable conversations about race. And so it's about having those conversations uncomfortably and sitting in it, and even not aligning yourselves with people that have racist views. It's hard. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, I'm not perfect at it. There's times where I do speak up, and there's times where I don't. Yeah, and I'm human. I can't. I'm not giving myself an out. I'm just saying it's difficult.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
So if I was looking for a way to combat white supremacy as a European American, where did you start? Was it through a book? Was it through, or what do you do now to?
I mean, it's completely honestly, a lot of it's our friendship. A lot of it's being a minority. Like, I put myself in spaces where I'm a minority. You know what I mean? Because when you live a completely white experience, you're not even knowingly, you're not even trying to not know, you just don't know what you don't know. You know, so a lot of it's trying to have conversations and just shutting up and listening, and a lot of it takes being open.
Yeah.
It takes taking your ego out of the way, because I know with a lot of white people, they like to say, and I'm trying to educate on this as much as I can, well, I don't have white privilege, I grew up poor. It's not about that. It's just there's not systems in place that keep you. Yeah. You weren't redlined. Your grandparents weren't redlined, which means they could get mortgages out. They could buy homes. They could build generational wealth. You know what I mean? Yeah. There weren't systems in play that were keeping them. So it takes just even having an open mind.
So knowing that you've benefited from white supremacy, even though you don't fit the bill for it, you
do, and you still do.
And you still do.
And honestly, just listening to people of color's experience, because honestly, I know as white people, a lot of us discredit or I can say I haven't done that. Like, I think that's where I started, was like just hearing lived experience and being like, I had no idea. Yeah. I'm late to the game. But also, you're late to the game, but don't hate on yourself, because guess what? That doesn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, hating on yourself and being angry and because I feel like that too. I'm like, God, where was I? You know what I mean? Like, what have I not been paying? That doesn't do anything. No. You can get angry for a second, but then where do you go?
So I would say one book that talks about what you're talking about, lived experience, just in a conversational way, is Between the World and Me.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yeah. I was just thinking that. I've been wanting to read his book.
Yeah, it's because it's very...
Do you have it?
Yeah, I know. I have it on audiobook.
Okay.
But it is very... Or maybe I do have it. Okay. I may have gifted it to my son.
Okay.
I'll have to
check
him. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'll check. But it is talking about lived experience in a very conversational way. What else did we read? The girl, I can't remember her name.
Oh, Austin Channing Brown.
Austin Channing Brown.
She's from Akron, Ohio. I mean,
what was the name of her book? I can't remember.
Oh my God. Let me Google it. Why can't I think of it? We just read it. It just came up.
We got to do our book list.
I should do that. I should do a whole book.
I think we should do a whole series, each book.
I'm still here.
I'm still here. Black Dignity.
Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness.
Austin Channing Brown.
And it took so here, I have one black kid in my school. I never knew what his experience was like, you know? I never even knew to think about it. Not necessarily ask him, like, what's it like to be black, but just opening my mind up to that he would have a very different reality than me. That he would have a very different lived experience.
He does, He will always. Right. I mean, just by nature of us being in individual, different bodies.
Yes,
we're gonna have a different experience.
So you asked me, that's where it started. Like, it started with, running your campaign and I mean, here's the thing. I knew of these terms nebula, like kind of removed, but I didn't know until I met someone and listened to them. So this is a good question too. We have uncomfortable conversations, but because I came across your story. I came across your story just by happenstance because I ran your campaign and they kind of came up. But how is it appropriate, and how should white people broach this with their friends of color? Because it's, you know what I mean? Like, it is an awkward conversation. You're not going to just sit down and say, How has your life experience been different? You know what I mean?
I think a part of growing a relationship with any one person, you will get to know their background. I don't think you have to directly be like, how was your experience as a person? Right. Or how's your experience? I don't think that necessarily needs to happen unless a space has been created between the two for it to happen.
So I will say too, because this is why I bring it up, is because my first job I was a minority, working for the city of Cleveland, but I still had no concept, none.
Those people weren't your friends.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they were just they were coworkers, and it's also not the appropriate space to talk about that.
Unless you grew a relationship with one of them, right?
Because that's what I'm saying. We became very close, and so it was like, oh, okay, wow. You know what I mean? Like, you raise your kids much differently than white people do, because you have to.
I got to.
Right, you don't have a choice. And so that, and then getting close to your kids was like, oh my God, well, okay, like, they live a different reality than my children will if I have them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. I mean, it's like...
it's becoming close.
It's obviously easier for the reverse. I mean, I think for non-white people to find a white person to have these conversations with, but it takes some work for white people to do that because of what we were talking about today. Because of that it has been ingrained in you that you I'm not saying all of you, but you shouldn't really have to extend that.
Right.
That you should just, know everything. So what more do you need to know?
I've literally had that question asked me. Well, that, or I've had people say, well, we had Barack Obama and look at Oprah.
You know everything. So what more? So it really is getting out of that complex that, like, really,
and challenging when you feel anger or when you feel resistance to hearing someone share their story, just sitting with that feeling and not getting mad at yourself that you're having that feeling, but just acknowledging that feeling is actually happening.
Yes, because it will. If you are truly doing if you are truly affecting white supremacy and truly affecting racism, you're going to be triggered. You are going to be everybody.
I still do this work and I get angry is the wrong word, but I get defensive.
Yeah.
Because I have to admit, and I'm not trying to center whiteness, but it is hard to sit here sometimes and hear, oh my God, what white people have done and and it makes me want to get defensive. And I don't, but I have to work on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think people say, oh, how do you do this? But it's like, I'm still triggered. I'm not trying to make myself like I'm going through a lot. I don't want to dig pity or anything. I'm just saying that I experienced reticence or anger, like, oh my God, like, how much can we shit on white people? I mean, truly, and I want to get defensive and say, look at what we've done, but that's not the point of these conversations.
No, it really is not the point, because you can get validated through your school history books. You can get validated.
So we're validated everything.
You get validated so many of it. That's the point of being in these spaces and being ready to have these conversations.
Right. What did we say? I just posted something on Instagram. Oh, it was like something about we're not asking white people to apologize for the past. I mean, that to you as the person of color, does that do anything?
What is it going to do?
Right. Because you said that before.
Nothing. I mean, great. Do you feel better now that you apologize?
Right.
Because who's that apology?
We had that episode too of like white, what is it, tears, something, I don't remember. Yeah, white confessional, yeah. Whereas like I've seen women do it to you where they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And you're like,
sorry for what?
Yeah.
What'd you do?
Right. So like, I mean, I'm glad you assuaged your own guilt.
Yeah. But but also I think you come into these spaces and to give you an understanding of what I think as to why I think we can do this is because you know that it is not a personal attack on you. Yeah. And if it is, you got to check that. Like, why do you feel like this is personally attacking you? And if you feel some type of way about it, then what you going to do about it? If you don't like that this is the perception of things, then what are you going to do about it? Right? Because I am not wrong for my feelings, nor are you wrong for yours. That is it. Our feelings are rooted in their own truths. But if you realize that your feeling is not rooted in a real truth, or you realize that it's not rooted in a real truth, then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I think that's where that defensiveness, and not with you, but with, I mean, or I don't know
but
for
it
you,
comes
but
up
it's
sometimes.
like, but the truth is this, and this. There are good white people, and there are, you know what I mean? Like,
but that's not the
but
point.
that's not. And again, that's what I'm saying is that you're able to come into the space and say, this is not necessarily a direct attack on Christina Kimbrough. Like, this is not, no one.
It's not about me. And I think what white people, because we've grown up so used to everything being about us, we center ourselves in everything.
All of it's a personal attack.
Yeah, we center our feelings, and even that's going to be triggering to some white people.
Yeah.
But I'm alright with it. Yeah, so I think we're at the end of this.
We definitely are.
I think we took a deep dive into what it is, where it still lies, and you know, I think my so what now what is familiarizing yourself with, like, it's still something that's very prevalent today, and it still affects people of color. Yeah. And because of my white privilege that I wake up and have every day, I don't have to see it.
You don't have to see it.
And because I don't see it, doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, but you see it.
Oh, of course, now I do. But I did it before.
I get you.
Like, I know I've said, like, it's a very similar experience with being a woman. You know, I've shared experiences with men before of, like, you know, just being catcalled, or just how I'm afraid to go in spaces by myself. And they're like, nah, that's crazy. No way. And you're like, okay, I get, or they'll say men aren't like that. And I'm like, I get that you don't see that, and I get that you don't see that, but that doesn't mean it's not happening to me.
Absolutely. I agree.
It's the same thing with
white attack on you as a man.
Exactly. And men will take it that way, as in, I'm attacking all men. It's not about that. It's just about the fact that it still happens. Yeah. And charged white people speak up, because when you hear racist things, you don't realize the detriment that it does. Yeah. Because change happens person to person.
Yeah, person to person. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a personal journey.
It is.
As you like to say.
It is.
All right, my so what is that even though the Civil War ended legal white supremacy, it is still prevalent.
It's an attitude and mindset.
Yeah, it's still here. It's still in our institutions, and we need to recognize, accept, realize, and then do something about it. Pick your poison. There are so many different ways to influence white supremacy in a way that it is not the only construct of our society. Like, there are so many different ways. As we kind of talk, it doesn't matter what your nationality is or whatever, you can affect white supremacy. But we do need white folks to do a lot of that. Yeah. Now what? I just don't think it's enough to say that it's bad. Like I just said, you got to do something. We got to study it. We got to understand that we have a history that is not something to necessarily be proud of on all fronts.
I agree.
Like, until we get off the notion, or let's get away from the notion that we have an amazingly great, unflawed history. The United States has a very flawed history.
Which we want to do, white people want to do.
Yeah.
Because they're uncomfortable saying, and I think you can hold in your hands what we've done wrong and what we've done right.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I've
You
always
can
said
point
that.
it out.
That's what I'm saying.
You can literally
it's
put
like
a finger on it.
Person, look, my husband, it's like a marriage. Like, my husband loves me for all that I am, my mistakes and the wonder. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still love my country, but I consider myself a patriot, but it doesn't mean that I can't acknowledge where it's gone wrong.
Absolutely. And I'll leave with, I found a quote from one of the articles that I read too, by Nikki Brown. She is an African-American history professor at the University of New Orleans. And she said, and they quote, studying the history of white supremacy will help our country remember the true meaning of civil rights, and it will show us, as a nation, how to remove not just the bullhorn and the tiki torch, but also the law, journal, and medical textbook of those who actively seek to oppress others.
Wow.
So it's not just about them votes.
Right.
It's not just about that. It's about so much more.
Right. I think that would be the whole theme of this.
Yeah, it's more than just
the tiki torches.
Wow.
I know. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, rate, review, and subscribe. That was not a great transition.
gotta do next? Oh, I want to plug this too, because I actually struggle sometimes putting the pieces together with how I teach my kids about these different contexts. I mean, these different subjects. So I follow this lady. She's on Instagram. It's at Read Like a Rock Star.
You'll follow her.
And her name is Naomi O'Brien, and she curates curriculum to kind of along the lines of social and racial justice. It's beautiful. I'm actually pulling her stuff on cultural appropriation to use, but it goes beyond that, because influencing these things is not just about identifying where white supremacy is, or identifying where, racism is. It's about teaching kindness and appreciation and empathy and all these different things. And she is a great, I think, person to kind of follow if you're looking for, okay, how do I put that into practice? As a teacher, how do I put that into social studies? How do I put that into
context? She gives a lot of context.
Yeah, and she has all kinds of worksheets and printouts, and I think she's all together when you look at how she writes her curriculum. Meaning, if you're a person who's in that profession, or you're like me, I part-time teach my kids, or after school, homeschool, that's what my daughter calls it. She gives you ways to be inclusive in just the way that you're putting the pieces together for them.
I love that. Okay, so you're on that. I will give another one. It's called on Instagram, No White Saviors. It talks a lot about it actually on the last episode of what is it called? White saviorism. But it's the same thing. It gives a lot of context to white people, and it gives a lot of history of white supremacy, of racism, and how we can, and this goes to what I was saying, is how we can remove ourselves and not white center everything.
Yeah.
Or no white saviors.
I think we should do that. Always add a follower.
I think so.
Who do we follow to help us? Because I really love this lady.
I love it.
In her curriculum.
Yep.
Yep.
We partake in a lot of stuff, so we'll share where we learn. We're constantly learning.
Constantly.
So, rate, review, and subscribe.
Yes!
Please.
Right.
Please don't underestimate if you support our work, and we know y'all do because we know you're listening. Leaving a comment, review, because it helps us get up in the algorithm in iTunes.
Yes. So, hooray for algorithms, right? Yes.
I know the basics. I can't tell you how the algorithms work. But.
And challenge us.
Yeah.
I like it.
You can email us always at yourneighborshood@gmail.com.
True that.
DM us on Instagram or Facebook.
At Your Neighbor's Hood.
Yeah, on all of them.
All of them, except for Twitter, where Your Neighbor's Hood.
One.
Yeah.
Someone else had Your Neighbor's Hood, which is funny. Yeah.
Tomato. All right.
Well, thanks, guys. Stay curious.
And make it a great day.
What's this?
Isn't that who used to do that, Nixon? Somebody did this.
That's actually really funny. I don't know who does that. I thought it was another Jackieism.
No, I'll find out who does it. Okay. Stop.
I'm going to stop the recording.